Salutations, friends, and welcome to the first ever Team Islas Podcast. My name is Doug Bush, and today I'm joined by
Patricia Islas
and
Zach Shear.
And this podcast is for anyone looking to better themselves at percussion education.
One of the first things we wanted to talk about in this introductory episode is what is this podcast? And primarily, this podcast is a resource for you, the percussion educator. Our goal is to provide evergreen content that could vary from a topic that might help you teach your beginner class better to a topic that might help you prepare your seniors as they move on into whatever is next for them musically and everything in between. Offline, we were joking that a subtitle for this podcast could be What You Missed in Your Music Ed Degree. And we all had wonderful experiences at the University of North Texas that we'll talk about a little later. But as a lot of us know, a lot of times collegiate music programs just aren't set up to cater to the really specific needs and topics that you might need as a percussion educator in the year 2024. This podcast is also inspired by real life conversations that we have all had with other educators, specifically people we looked to as examples or master teachers that we wanted to learn from. So I know I was telling Mr. Bush and Miss Islas that I have a very specific memory. Probably the first or second year we worked together of being invited to their house to sit and hang and talk after the competitive marching band season was over, after all the drumline contests were over, and to just join them and a few other really experienced teachers and talk about what worked this season, what did we try new, what are we looking towards next. And as a young teacher, I was just like giddy with excitement to get to sit down and hear from these other guys about what they're doing and what worked and what didn't. And I just took so much from that. The other thing that we talk about often that, again, has inspired this podcast is that specifically as a percussion director surrounded by band directors every day, I kind of felt like I was on an island. I loved working with band directors. I was married to one.
You were?
I was.
No longer.
I am currently married to someone who used to be a band director, would be the right way to put that. Man, taught with so many great band directors, but I can't talk to them about what grip my vibraphones are going to use in marching band. And so every time I was headed to either all region band auditions or TMEA or TBA or any place where there might be other people from my tribe, I was like, yes, please, can we talk? And so that type of, those types of conversations are what we wanted to bring here.
Yeah, absolutely. So who are we, right? Miss Islas, who are you?
Well, I think it's important to give a little bit of our background. I don't want to get too in the weeds with all the details. If you want to find out our bios, you can go to TeamIslas.com and read all the specifics there. But I do think it's important to give a little bit of insight to where each of us came from. So you can further understand what each of us are bringing to the table. So I guess I want to start with my high school experience just a little bit. I grew up in Texas, in the North Texas area, and went to a very competitively successful high school, especially in the Texas realm, achieving all the things that you would expect of a really strong band program, and had all the luxuries that came with that, including even in the mid to early 90s, a percussion-specific director who was able to show me different types of percussion and encourage me in ways that I was really able to benefit from as a young student. That eventually led me to the University of North Texas, which was kind of like, for me, going to Hogwarts. It was such a cool experience because I had already gotten excited about percussion and different areas of it, but getting to see so many people as excited and intense about it as I was very invigorating for a young Islas. And then having access to a variety of different professors that had specialties in all sorts of different avenues of percussion was also really exciting for me. So, I don't want to get too into all the things and ensembles I was in, but a few of them that you might not expect were the Gamelan Ensemble run by Ed Smith, which was a really cool experience, in South Indian Ensemble. I also obviously spent time learning from the famous Paul and Sandy Rennick in the percussion and the drum line. So I benefited from having access to all of that great information and experience that came with it. And at the same time, I started to get interested in composition and arranging. It wasn't something that was necessarily encouraged by any of my teachers, but I noticed that all of them had some sort of experience in arranging or composing or improvising. And it became clear to me that if I wanted to move further in my career, that getting experience doing those things might be beneficial. So kind of on my own, I started experimenting with composing and dipped my toes in writing things for myself and for Doug and I to play. But at the same time, trying to write things for my students at some of the schools that I was teching at or teaching at for them to play as well. Which then led to bigger and bigger arranging gigs. First from, I think, Sherman High School, that we arranged for their indoor show or a little bit for their marching band show, which had more low stakes because it was in-house and we could teach the students directly, which then led to a couple of other gigs, which included Horn High School in Mesquite, where we worked with John Bingaman and Clayton Stroup for a number of years. And that was a really important time, I think, because it was an opportunity to really stretch creatively some of the things that I wanted to do, because the students were so capable. So it became an opportunity to try some really inventive things. That was a lot of fun. But also have the backing of a team to really bring it to life for one of the first times, for me personally. And then, there's kind of a lot of things that overlap in my career. While I was doing the teaching and arranging, I was also spending time as a performer, trying to play, I guess, a mix of vibraphone that was not really jazz and not really pop and not really world music. It was just kind of all the influences that I was into at the time, and allowing that to just be this fun, creative project that allowed me to scratch that performance itch that I wasn't getting since I was out of college. And then also at the same time, there was drum corps was a part of my life. In meeting Doug, I had no experience in drum corps in high school. I had maybe only gone to 1 or 2 shows. And in college, people around me were all marching drum corps and talking about their experiences and bringing that to the ensembles that they were playing in, and were definitely influence on me because I was around them. But I had no personal experience marching or playing in a drum corps. But Doug had mentioned that he was teaching at this corps called Southwind, and that they needed some help with the front ensemble, and asked if I was interested in all. And I said, yeah, heck, why not? Let's do it. So I spent, I think it was 3 summers. Was it 3 summers? 3 or 4 summers?
4.
4 summers. Full summers with Southwind Drum and Bugle Corps, teching the front ensemble, and then also a couple of summers with Blue Knights as well. So, yeah, I'm going to pass it to Doug because I'll let him explain a little bit more in depth with the drum corps experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, specifically with the drum corps experience, I had marched for a feeder corps for the Phantom Regiment at the time called Phantom Legion, that no longer exists, but got a lot of formative training there, because if we go back to some of my earlier developments from the North Texas area as well, from Dallas, but our band program was quite a bit different than Miss Islas's band program. I think we had anywhere from about 40 to 45 kids in the marching band total. We had one director, never had a percussion specialist. If you are old enough to have seen Drumline the movie, we would have drumline battles with Kimball and South Oak Cliff. But what was very fortunate about that process is what I lacked potentially in the opportunities educationally, I gained in the opportunities to arrange and compose. So by my last 2 years in high school, I was getting the experience of actually organizing rehearsals with the other students, my peers, and writing music for them to play. And that was invaluable because, as Mr. Shear alluded to earlier, in the entirety of getting my music education degree at the University of North Texas, I actually was never kind of given either of those opportunities to teach a drumline or write for a drumline, which became two of the most consistent sources of my professional career, which included teaching for and writing for drum corps at the University of North Texas. That's where I met and fell in love with Miss Islas, right? And leaving from there, it branched very naturally into the teaching and the writing that included drum corps, and then started here in the North Texas area, but has branched out to nationally, and since then have had the pleasure and privilege to write and arrange not just for open class and world class drum corps, but also for several marching bands that have gone on to be state finalists, even state champions, and several drumlines that have won all essentially the North Texas local drumline contest, and even sometimes gone down to Austin and competed there and been very successful, which has been wonderful. Beyond that, I would say, we have this experience and success in writing a lot of method books that have the impetus for has been to serve a need as educators that we saw. So I wrote a best-selling intermediate snare drum method and solo book titled Super Hands that was used. We noticed in so many of these strong programs that we're having difficulty with the transition from middle school to high school. And so this was meant to kind of help with that. And Miss Islas wrote Momentum, a two-mallet method book, best-selling method book on two-mallet skills and solos. And then Opening Statement, which is a snare drum beginning to intermediate solo book. And what's important about mentioning all those and its relevance to the podcast, I think, is that none of them were done in isolation. We're very fortunate to have several friends in the area and even outside of Texas that are master educators that we spoke to at not just high school level, but in some cases also a collegiate level. What are some of the deficiencies you're seeing when your students come to your collegiate programs and so on and so forth that helped inform kind of these books that I think is one of the things that has led to the success we've seen is because they've been so adaptable to any kind of program in any type of situation, which again is kind of the goal of this entire podcast. And I would say potentially our magnum opus or what our biggest project is for the last 6 years working on Player's Guide along with Mr. Shear, that is our beginning percussion book, right? It is aimed for the beginning percussionist and the educator that is teaching the beginning percussionist. And it's I think all three of us have a lot of pride in the work we've done the last 6 years on making this. And I can't speak for the other two, but I know I have been overwhelmed and surprised, frankly, with the amount of reception and how well the book has already done in its inaugural year. It's been extremely exciting, and so I think kind of like to speak a little further onto that and his background and our background together. I'm going to toss stuff back over to Mr. Shear here.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. So excited to have to follow those two resumes. So thank you for that. It's interesting as you were talking about our time together writing and working on Player's Guide, the beginning percussion method book. It made me think about, kind of introducing myself. And I think one of the reasons I was so excited to work on Player's Guide with you all is not just because we have such a long track record of working together and I love doing anything with you guys, but because as a teacher, I always felt like I had a strength or a special connection or just a love for teaching beginning percussion specifically. As I kind of introduce myself here, it makes me think about, so I grew up in central Oklahoma and I think from the first, in a small town with a band program that was not like Miss Islas's and was not in an urban setting like Mr. Bush's, but was just kind of a probably very normal experience for a kid in a small town band outside of Texas. However, I was so blessed to have an amazing beginning percussion teacher named Mr. Bartrug. Shout out to Mr. Bartrug if he's listening to our very first episode here. But I just remember being hooked from day one because of him. And because of his just like magic that he created in that classroom. So I was hooked from sixth grade, from like first day of sixth grade. That led me to do a lot of the things that, kids in band in high school do that are really into it, make all-state band and do all those things. And then my first introduction to kind of the world outside of small town Oklahoma was coming to a drum set camp at the University of North Texas, run by the great Ed Soph, I think maybe between my like sophomore and junior year of high school, and was just blown away that there were all these things outside of my little world. That led me to then pursue coming to college at the University of North Texas, actually on a jazz scholarship, not to be a music ed major. Spent a couple years as a jazz major at UNT, studying with Ed and doing all the things that come along with that, but really just felt a pull of a love for teaching and a desire to have a career in teaching that kind of led me back to be a music education major. And then to start to do all the things that a lot of us have done as music education majors, playing the drum line at the University of North Texas, playing lots of ensembles, some of the ones that you mentioned, Patricia, and many others, to March Drum Corps in 2008 at Phantom Regiment, again with Paul and Sandy, who've had a big influence on all three of us. And then was just chomping at the bit, specifically my last couple years at UNT, to learn how to do this job that I was about to go do, how to become a percussion director. And so I think one of the things we'll hopefully talk about in a later episode, but one of the things, this was actually kind of the topic of one of the clinics I gave at University of North Texas a few years ago, is like, how do I, as a percussion student, a music ed major, prepare myself to actually go do this job? Well, that led me to go student teach with Jeff Osdemore at Colleyville Heritage High School and just be, blown away by how much I didn't know about being a good percussion teacher. I was so blessed by that semester there with him. And then to go teach 1 year at Rockwall Heath High School, but then land really what was a dream job at Coppell High School as the percussion director there for Coppell ISD. That is where I got the good fortune of getting to meet Doug and Patricia and start to work with them and to really put into practice a lot of the things I had learned, a lot of things that we're going to talk about on the podcast that led to started to lead to competitive success. So I was so fortunate to have many students make the All-State Band or go on to March Drum Corps or have the group win call for tapes or pace-it drumline competitions or things like that. And those tried and true methods that led to those things are what we hope to talk about. I think one of the unique things that we bring to the table and that we hope to share is the fact that a lot of things we're going to talk about and a lot of things that you as a percussion director might do on a daily or monthly basis, we have all done together. So whether it's, like Mr. Bush alluded to, whether it's talking about what exercises should go into a book for an intermediate snare drummer, or should beginners tap their foot or not? We have sat over meals or tea or in car rides and talked about, debated, certain, maybe argued, not really argued, maybe, but we've discussed all these things at length for years, and we hope that comes out in what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Shear. You said that one of your first experiences here in the North Texas area was attending something called a drum set camp. Is that correct?
That's correct.
A drum set that's the multi-percussion instrument that is often found in the center of the front ensemble. Is
That's
that right?
right. And do you use your feet to play it too?
Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe not should. What are the advantages and disadvantages of having a drum set in the front ensemble from both a teaching and arranging standpoint? That's an example of topics that we're going to cover here on the podcast, right? But episode 1 coming up shortly here is the development of culture in your percussion program, because it's where it all starts, folks. You don't got that, you don't got nothing. So we wanted to start with a bang, going into the culture. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. If you have any questions at all for the podcast, send them to teamislas@gmail.com. That's Team Islas, TeamIslas @gmail.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you can grid flam drags off the left, give us that sweet 5-star review. Remember, friends, step 1 is time, step 2 is sound, and step 3 is subscribing to the Team Islas Podcast.